afternoon and welcome. Sisters and brothers, I am honored to have been asked to serve as co-MC for this wonderful program this afternoon. Dr. Shabazz is one of my heroes. My husband and I were married in Masjid by Dr. Shabazz. He was, when we converted to Islam, he was the minister. He was thoughtful, and I cherish the memories of his many family activities. Last winter, I saw a play at the arena stage, and the main character they referred to as the tallest tree in the forest. I think that title aptly represents Dr. Shabazz. To me, he was and is truly one of the tallest trees in the forest. I present Atiba Medjing.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It also is an honor for me to have this opportunity to co-MC this program for a man who, as Carol said, is a tall tree in the forest. He, for me, I would say the best way to describe Dr. Shabazz was he was like a grandfather to me. Many times when he visited DC, my mother would call and would say, we didn't refer to him as Dr. Shabazz, we referred to him as Imam Shabazz. And she would say, Imam Shabazz is in town. And I would immediately say, well, whatever I have to do, I want to be there, I want to sit at the table with him, because there was always great information, but in a very familiar sense. It wasn't the structured kind of sense that you would think, at least in my opinion as a child, that a doctor would present. It was just very familiar. I want to read a quote before we move on, and then we're going to bring forward our Imam at the nation's mosque, Masjid Muhammad. This quote is from Senator Cory Booker. And I think that to me, it really explains in words how I felt that he lived his life. And I hope that you will agree. Don't speak in how you treat other people. Don't tell me how much you love your God. Show me in how much you love all God's children. Don't preach to me your passion for faith. Teach me through your compassion for your neighbors. In the end, I'm not interested in what you have to tell or sell, as I am in how you choose to live and give. And I believe that all of us would agree that the way that Dr. Shabazz lived his life, he was constantly giving. So with that, I'd like to bring forward the Imam of the nation's mosque, Masjid Muhammad, Imam Talib Sharif.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and that is always with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We give all praise and thanks to Almighty God, and we greet you, dear beloved brothers, sisters, friends, guests, family members, with the greetings of universal peace. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, God's peace be upon you all. It's certainly an honor for me to welcome you again to this tribute. This is a tribute to excellence. It's a saying that says, it is not the years in life that count, but it is the life in those years. And we're here to give tribute to the excellent life of our dear brother, family member, Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz. Wonderful human being. He had a wonderful life. It gives us the picture. When we look at, we like to speak to the sunrise and the sunset, you know, and they say it's the dash that counts. We hear people speaking about the dash between those two. But when that sun rises, it seems to take its time and begins to contribute and give life to other things on the earth. It gets to its peak, and then it begins to set, and the set begins to be a little faster. And this is really, the sun is a picture of really human life also speak to the human soul. We can see that depicted in children and teenagers. It seems like it's going to take a long time. It seems like forever for them to become adults. And they want to rush time, you see. But again, that's that son, you know. And then they get to that point. But then once they get to that point, the pinnacle, full strength, doing things, and it starts to go a little faster. And then they want more time now. They don't want things to go so fast. But the whole thing is, in his life, is really an object for all of us. And God gives him to us as a picture of the life is able to rest. The sunset is the life now resting upon his works, resting upon his labor. It's been working all day from sunrise to sunset, and then it sets and takes a well-deserved rest. Our dearly beloved, he's resting now because he's working up until his last breath. Working, mind, thinking about work, contributing. Then never stop working. And we have those from the facilities that he gave so much to speak to his greatness. We want to thank him for the legacy. He shocked the world. The good news is that he was already a professor in mathematics before he converted to Islam. And that also is to speak to the types of minds. You know about Muhammad Ali, and we'll see him in the presentation, and others, the types of minds that an individual such as Honorable Elijah Muhammad attracted with that message at that time. So he was already accomplished in that field. And he came here. One of his first major assignments was to come here to the nation's capital. The first mosque built in the whole country by indigenous African Americans. It really is the first mosque built in the whole country by American citizens, if you will. There were others that were built before it, but they were built with those who were called immigrants. So he was sent here, and he left a dynamic legacy for approximately 15 years. Now, what many don't know is he is really the transitional leadership figure at the nation's mosque. When I say transitional figure, he is the one that the mosque and this national movement in America, again, this whole movement that he embraced was a movement that have transitioned from small circles of self and nationalism to broader circles of humanity and universals. So he was that one that took place when that transition was happening. So he was here after the death of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They went from ministers to becoming imams. And he was in that position. And he came into the universal aspiration of all human beings. And his life shows that our life is not about our particular personal interest. It's not about our particular religious persuasion per se. It's about service to all of humanity. He is upon the same creation of Adam. Adam was created, and all the scriptures are consistent with this. On the first day, second day, third day, he gives us a picture of things being created. But we don't hear about Adam until the sixth day. Adam, he's the last. He's created on the sixth day. And with Adam comes a beautiful identity. And it was not a racial identity. It was not an ethnic identity. It was not a national identity. But his identity was human. And that was the first identity given to the first one. And that means it must be, it has to be. If the one that created that life gave it that identity, that must be the most important identity. Which means that every other identity comes after that identity. And it can never be more important than that first identity. His service was to serve the first identity. Not just the African American identity, not just the Caucasian identity, China, Saudi Arabia, other places where he traveled. No, human. To reflect the human identity, and his service was to all. And we have men from organizations that serve all people, all of humanity. And this is what his life is to unfold for us. So we are very grateful that we are here upon his legacy, and we're in the position that he was in, so it's a big shoes for me. I'm upon his shoulders, so I'm supposed to go a little further, and I want to embrace everything that came before me as a young leader here upon his leadership. So we want to thank you all for being here to give tribute to the excellent life of our dearly beloved Dr. Abdul Halim Shabazz. Thank you again.
Thank you for that wonderful welcome. Right now we're going to make a little bit of a change. We're going to have Ahmed Nuruddin. He's going to come up and introduce one of our distinguished guests to make the presentation.
Assalamualaikum. The slight shift that we need to make is I want to call up Dr. Michael Pearson, who is the Executive Director of the Mathematical Association of America. It was founded in 1950. 1915 is a professional society that focuses on mathematics, particularly at the undergraduate level. Dr. Pearson has a schedule conflict, but he was gracious enough to join us for the time. So we're going to call Dr. Pearson up.
Mike.
Well, I'm sure I have a foreign voice myself, so I'm sure I can broadcast to all you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I apologize for having to interject myself earlier in the program, but I think that Dr. Shabazz will appreciate it. I'm meeting in just a little while with several colleagues who've come in from around the country to work on projects to advance mathematics. So I think his love of mathematics makes that one of the few appropriate reasons to get out here a little early. So I appreciate that. You know, our paths, mine and Dr. Shabazz's, did cross because of our common love of and careers in mathematics. Dr. Shabazz was a longtime member of MAA. He joined in 1957 and maintained his membership until he passed away. He was a member. That I should have, okay. I will try to speak into that. So as I said, Dr. Shabazz joined the MAA in 1957 and was a member for the rest of his life. He remained a member even though in 1960, when he and colleagues from Clark, Atlanta, attended the Southeast Section meeting, they were turned away from full participation in that meeting. This was some years after the association had adopted a policy of non-discrimination, of openness at all association meetings. But like so many things, sometimes we fail to live up to our ideals. And he recognized that it was appropriate for him to continue to push to remain a part of the association. We heard a few minutes ago how Dr. Shabazz worked in his entire life for the good of all people. And he recognized that to continue to remain a part of the association and to work to change it was a professional goal that he wanted to pursue. And it was through pointed reminders that Dr. Shabazz and others, through those years of the civil rights movement, of our failure to live up to our ideals, that the professional societies, including MAA, came finally to not only welcome participation of all mathematicians, but to establish structures such as our Committee on Minority Participation that actively encourage development of mathematical capacity across boundaries of race, gender, and sexual orientation. I last saw Dr. Shabazz at the 2013 Louisiana-Mississippi section of the MAA about a year and a half ago. That's my home section. That's where I grew up in South Mississippi. And he attended because he had transferred. He was on the faculty at Grambling in Louisiana. And I was proud that he continued to participate in the section right up until his last year. In these times when legal challenges threaten many of the advances made during the last 50 years, it is important for those of us within professional societies and other civil organizations to continue our efforts to improve opportunities for all students, which is what Dr. Shabazz advocated for throughout his life, and to spark the interest and talent of all our students, and to build towards that better future that Dr. Shabazz and so many others have pointed us towards. I thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. James Pittman, the president and chairman of the Dunbar High School Alumni Federation, to come and make a presentation.
Good afternoon. Salam alaikum. I'm very privileged as chairman of the Dunbar Alumni Federation to greet you here at the historic and new state-of-the-art Paul Laurence Dunbar High School. As you see throughout this building, we've been able to inscribe names of dozens, actually more than 100 legends and pioneers on the wall in the armory and on the floors throughout this building. The intent, of course, is to ensure that the students who come see on whose shoulders they stand and to go forward without rancor or without all the encumbrances, as Dr. Shabazz did, to achieve in this work. As you see, many of the folks so inscribed changed America, and that's what Dr. Shabazz did as well. The Dunbar Alumni Federation, an umbrella organization of all of its alumni and alumni classes, is formed expressly to provide scholarship and other support to Dunbar graduates and to Dunbar students. So on this day, it's our honor and privilege to be a part of this program. And I would like to read this resolution. Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, Convocation Alumni Federation Incorporation. Resolution of honor and respect for Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz. Will all Dunbar alumni please stand? Are there any members of the class of 1945 here? I know some are trying to make it here for this occasion. But any other alumni, you may stand while I continue reading this resolution. For everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Whereas, in the providence of God, He has brought to a close the life of Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz, the officers and members of the Dunbar Alumni Federation express their sympathy to the family of Dr. Shabazz. We commend you to He that knows best and will always do right. You have our sincere prayers. Whereas, Dr. Shabazz, then known as Lonnie Cross, was a 1945 honor graduate of Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C., which has been called the greatest high school for African Americans in the United States because it had put so many students on the path to college through a rigorous academic program. Whereas, Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz was an enthusiastic supporter of the Dunbar Alumni Federation's mission to promote life skills and culture values that assist students in their academic pursuits in order to better their futures. Whereas, Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz, by life example, advanced the Federation objectives and purposes by his unstinting support of higher education, professional development, and teacher training. Whereas, Dr. Shabazz's scholarly leadership is exemplified by his recognition with the 2000 Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring for his role directly or indirectly developing and nurturing educational pursuits for more than half of all African Americans with PhDs in mathematics. Whereas the passing of Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz has left us deeply saddened, he will be missed but not forgotten. Therefore, be it resolved that we embrace the family to show our support and love, because in the death of our beloved Dr. Shabazz, we connect as Dunbar alumni for the rest of our lives. We cannot replace Dr. Shabazz, but we show our love, respect, and honor for him. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the family and a copy placed in the archives of the Dr. Lawrence E. Graves Museum of Dunbar History, adopted by the Board of Directors and members of the Dunbar Alumni Federation, Saturday, September 27, 2014. Humbly submitted on Saturday, October 18, 2014. Keep for plugging away. James Pittman, Chairman, Dunbar Alumni Federation. Thank you.
All right, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of asking Dr. Suleiman Yang, followed by Brother Kadir and Jim to come forward. They are good friends of our dear beloved Dr. Shabazz and close friends, almost family members, we could say. And understand that Dr. Yang. Oh, wonderful. Good. And when they finish, we'll have a
Good afternoon. I say assalamu alaikum to all of you. It's been great honor for me to stand before you at this school carrying the name of a very prominent African American, Paul Burns Dunbar. And Dr. Sabah will be very happy that in his absence, you have the insight and the wisdom to come to this place. But if you live in this city here, coming to this school is bringing history back to you. Dr. Shabazz came to my attention when I was a student at Hampton Institute. Now they call it Hampton University. In those days, the older people will remember that it was called Hampton Institute, just like Tuskegee Institute. Howard University used to be an institute too, long time ago. So when you talk about Dr. Shabazz, I'm going to use this brief moment to go back in time and connect the dots. Because in this life here, God in His wisdom makes each one of us an individual and ego. Among your family members, you are a leading star. Your family members are your supporting stars. And millions of people who don't know you are your extras. And this is something all of us would recognize. Because that's the wisdom of this life. Dr. Shabazz, when I met him as a young man from Africa, I was very active in student politics at Hampton. And Terry Holland, who is now deceased, knew him. And he said to us, we have to go to DC and see Dr. Shabazz. We saw him. And that was my introduction to him. And then later on, I came to know him more and more. The last moment I have where God in His wisdom made us part of that videotape. And my colleague here was a witness when we had that meeting with him here in DC. 5 points I want to leave you with regard to Dr. Shabazz. He was endowed by God to know one of the 2 things God gave to all of us. When we talk about civilization, and we are here in a center of learning, We are acting on these two things that God gave us. He gave us the alphabet. All of us, whether you like it or not, you are a prisoner of the English language. You are a prisoner of 26 letters, A to Z. Regardless of your knowledge, all your knowledge can be captured only in 26 letters. You may not be a lexicographer who knows the dictionary. Like Malcolm X, I was told by Alice Haley, knew the whole dictionary. Then, if you go back to Dr. Shabazz, you can see he was endowed with the other thing God has given us, numbers. 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 If you're an American today, we all run around with our cell phone. If you don't understand mathematics and physics, you don't know why the cell phone works. Dr. Shabazz was one of those people who knew logarithm. Your cell phones are run through electronics and mathematics. And he was endowed to be an African American who educated thousands of African Americans in numbers. So you have letters and numbers. He knew both. May God bless his soul for coming here and affecting many of us, many of our African American mathematicians and engineers. Each time your heartbeat is running, it will say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. And for all of us, for me and for all of you, we all do it for one another. May God bless his soul. And each one of you, please, don't underestimate yourself. With your tongue, which is your first cell phone, you can reach God. Thank you very much.
Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We thank Allah for this opportunity to be here this afternoon. We thank Allah for blessing us with this opportunity to see all of you present. Dr. Shabazz goes back in my life for 42 years. My wife and I attended Temple Number 4 the first Sunday of April 1972. I attended or asked her if she was available to attend with me, because I was curious how a meeting went. And the subject, his topic that day was Our Day Has Come. And again, it was out of curiosity that I attended. But by the end of the talk, I stood up. When the question was put forth, how many of you will stand up for the truth that you heard today? And I stood and I looked over to my wife on the sister side. When she saw me standing, she stood. In fact, she should be up here talking. Our relationship with Dr. Shabazz was more an extended family thing. He and I made Hajj together in 1977 with the Memoriam Muhammad. About 300 of us made pilgrimage to Mecca. And that was one of the highlights of our relationship. But again, it was as an extended family member that I appreciate the relationship with him. I was not related to him, say in contact with him as a mathematician. And over the last couple of weeks, I've talked a lot to mathematicians who knew him. But he attended our house after he left D.C. He attended my home with my 5 children and my wife on several occasions for dinner. He loved to eat. He loved to laugh. And he loved music. So we enjoyed, and Dr. Yang and I and Dr. Shabazz, we would run into each other at times in programs, and we value those encounters. I'm not going to talk much longer. I'm just proud to be able to say that I knew Dr. Shabazz first as one who interested me in his talk enough for me to become a Muslim. Again, I've been a Muslim since 1972. That is one of the main things I value about this relationship. But we had many laughs. My children know him well. He helped two of my children at main points in their lives academically with mathematics. One of my son there, he had a problem graduating from Virginia State. And it was through from a talk that he had with Dr. Shabazz that he graduated. The mathematics course was giving him trouble. My daughter, my oldest daughter, was having a problem here at Dunbar, not this building, but the previous one, with mathematics. At the dinner table one evening, he took her back in our presence to where she felt comfortable in mathematics. And he brought her up to the present. She passed the test the next day. So, again, I'm thankful to Allah. There's much more I can say, but I'm just appreciative of the opportunity to be able to stand before you and indicate that we have a beautiful relationship. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
I understand that we can go back to our agenda that our dear sister Jean Muhammad has arrived. Good, and we'd like to bring her forward. Many of you will know her from Hampton, and she has some fond memories to bring to you.
It gives me great honor and a little surprise to talk to you today about Dr. Shabazz. But there's a few things that I have to say. First of all, I would not be at Hampton University as chair of the computer science department if not for Dr. Shabazz. So let me say that. I would not have gone and gotten a PhD at all without Dr. Shabazz. So when you talk about Dr. Shabazz as a mathematician, I want to talk to Dr. Shabazz from a computer scientist. I've known him for 40 years. He married my daughter. She specifically asked for him to preside at her wedding. And I found him and he was in China at the time. I didn't know he was in China. And I'm texting him and calling him, and he called me from China. And he said, it must be important if you're calling me. And when I told him that my daughter wanted him to preside over her wedding, he said, I will be there with bells on. And he was. He gave her and my son-in-law the conversation of what it means to be a husband and a wife. Not just Islam, because her husband was a Muslim, but he wanted him to understand what it meant to be a husband. We appreciated that. I was with him in Saudi Arabia, and when he was teaching there, I set 2 computer institutes for women in Saudi Arabia. And he told me that my education wasn't done, and I had to do more. When I came back, I had 5 children, did not know how I was going to get through this program. He called me up and he says, if you go back, I'll find you the money. If you get that PhD, I'm going to find you the money. He called me up. I was working at Bell Labs, and he says, get ready. Get your application ready, because I found you some money. He had them to hold the application process for the scholarship of the NPSC scholarship. It was already over with, the deadline, and he asked them to had them to hold it until I could get my application in. I got the application in, and needless to say, I got the scholarship. That was who he was. Now let me say one more thing. I was in that PhD program at Florida State. I had 5 children. Keep going back to that at the same time. And I was struggling in this course called fuzzy logic. Now, before going, I didn't know what that was. I know I was having difficulties in that course. I went to the professor, I met with him afterwards, and I still was having problems. I called him on the phone. He was at Lincoln at the time teaching, that's where he was, and I said, I'm in trouble. I'm having trouble with this mathematics. I talked to him on the phone twice, and I aced that class. Now see, at this moment, I'm breaking up because I wouldn't have gotten through that program without the funding, without his inspiration telling me I could do it, and telling me that I had to do it for my children. That if I went ahead and continued my education, that would make them continue their education. And let me say, I have 5 children. I keep going back to that because it's been a struggle. And of the 5, 4 of them have their master's degrees. And let me say, my son got his master's through a lot of struggle. Trust me, that youngest one of mine. But let me say this. Dr. Shabazz wrote his letters for him to get his master's degree and told him he could do it. Now, he never would take anything from me. You know, if you know him, you know you can't give him anything. Now, I could give him a dinner occasionally, because he did like to eat. But what I did was, what I was able to do for him, the only thing that I knew that he was so happy about was that I do teach at Hampton University. I'm a chair, and President Obama came down and did the commencement. The moment I heard that President Obama was coming, I called him on the phone. And I said, I have your ticket. Because you couldn't get a ticket. They were securing everybody. Everybody had to be checked 1,000 times. I said, I have your ticket. If I have your ticket, you're going to come. He says, I'll be there. And that's the only thing that he would ever take from me. As much as he has done for my family and for me personally, that's all I can give him. For him to be able to check, for him to have a chance to be up close and personal and see President Obama when he did our commencement. But this man, I've had 3 of his professors in my lives that he taught. That was my teachers. I have ran across so many females, in particular, that he has taught, and in my field, computer science, that he was able to get them through that math. And I'm saying it just like that, get us through that math. And he was responsible for that. And this does not even represent 1/100% of the lives that he has touched throughout his life. I mean, he just is that inspirational. So I stand here today not trying to tell you what I have as a degree, because I'm telling you, without him, it just absolutely would not have been possible. So he's not just a mathematician. He's the most amazing person I've ever met. And I can honestly say that. He's inspiring to whoever he met. And he gave everything he had. If you were hungry, he'd give you the last morsel of food that he had. If you told him you couldn't pay your rent, he would take the money out of his pocket and give you the money to pay your rent. That's the person that I know. So yes, he taught me Islam. He taught me mathematics. But he was a special friend that I just will take with me forever. And he's had such an impact on my daughter who's here today. She's a computer scientist. He's taught with her. He has impacted a generation of my family. And that's all I have to say. I just love him dearly.
Whose mother was taught by Dr. Shabazz.
she's an award-winning teacher now.
Dr. Shirley Malcolm from the American Association for the Advancement of Science sent regrets that her schedule wouldn't permit her to join us. But she did send a prepared statement, which I'll read. Each year, AAAS recognizes scientists who have mentored significant members of minorities, women, and or persons with disabilities through and to the PhD in science, mathematics, and engineering. Recognizing the underrepresentation of these groups in science fields, the association wishes to highlight those individuals who have undertaken extraordinary efforts to diversify the next generation of science professionals. Dr. Shabazz received the Mentor Award for 1992, the second year the award was offered. It was bestowed to him in February of 1993 at the AAAS annual meeting in Boston, Massachusetts. I wish to commit to you an excerpt of an article written at the time about the circumstances and contributions that prompted this incredible recognition. Dr. Abdul Alim Abdul Shabazz, 1992 AAAS Mentor Award winner. Ceremony, February 15, 1993. When Dr. Abdul Alim Abdul Shabazz first joined the mathematics faculty at Atlanta University, now Clark Atlanta, in Georgia, there were 2 students pursuing master's degree in his department. Over the next 6 years, the dynamic young professor and department chair recruited and graduated 109 mathematics students, all but 4 of them African Americans, and 31 of whom went on to receive their doctorates in mathematics or mathematics education. In fact, nearly 200 African American mathematicians with PhDs in the United States today, about half were mentored by Dr. Shabazz with his students. For these and many subsequent achievements during his 41-year career, Dr. Shabazz will receive the 1992 Mentor Award from the American Association for the Advancement of Science. The award will be presented at the 1993 AAAS annual meeting in Boston, Massachusetts on Monday, February 15th. February is Black History Month, a history that for Dr. Shabazz is intricately linked to his students' success. He has written extensively on the role of the Africans and Asians in origin and development of mathematics, and says that teaching this history to his students gives them a sense of identity with mathematics. Dr. Shabazz urged his students to understand that mathematics is not something beyond their reach, but rather a fundamental part of their daily lives. We have a favorite slogan around here. He says, mathematics is life, and life is mathematics. We show students that it is as natural and easy as getting out of bed in the morning. Emphasizing the everydayness of mathematics helps break down the phobias and resistance people have to the subject. Dr. Shabazz was born in Bessemer, a small town south of Birmingham, Alabama, where he was happier in school than anywhere else. He attended Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C., and then went on to receive a bachelor's degree in mathematics and chemistry at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, a master's degree in mathematics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1951, and a doctorate in mathematics from Cornell University in 1955. We were poor, recalls Dr. Shabazz of his upbringing, but we had excellent teachers and mentors. My My father was illiterate, and my mother only went to the 7th grade. But they were gifted people, inspired me with high hopes. Dr. Shabazz joined the faculty of Atlanta University in 1957 as an associate professor and chair of the mathematics department. During his time there, Dr. Shabazz also joined the Nation of Islam and invited a fellow member to speak to the mathematics club. Malcolm X absolutely electrified my students and the faculty with lectures on mathematics of the Sphinx and the pyramids, recalls Dr. Shabazz. Dr. Shabazz left Atlanta University in 1963 to become education minister for the Nation of Islam, a post he held until 1982. After 4 years teaching in Saudi Arabia, Dr. Shabazz returned to the faculty of Clark Atlanta in 1986, where he is now a professor and chair of the Mathematical Sciences Department. Of the 461 citizens, United States citizens, who received mathematics doctorates in 1991, only 10 were African American, according to the National Research Council. Dr. Shabazz insists that although the statistics are bad, it is not because the students weren't there, they just needed opportunities. This country has never had the will to educate all the students equally well. The idea that only a few people can be expected to do well in mathematics is one that is imposed on students and teachers by society. I find that when you give youth an opportunity, they rise to the challenge. The AAAS Mentor Award was initiated in 1990-91 to honor individuals who during their careers demonstrate extraordinary leadership in helping to increase the participation of minorities, women, and persons with disabilities in science and engineering. It is important to note that the impact that the prize and the awardee, Dr. Shabazz, had beyond that moment in history. Among the other individuals receiving recognition at the event was Dr. Jack Gibbons, former director of the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment, who had assumed the role of science advisor to President William Clinton. Dr. Gibbons was so inspired by the award and by Dr. Shabazz's singular contribution to increasing the number of African American PhDs in mathematics. Subsequently, the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science and Mathematics and Engineering Mentoring was established by the White House in 1995. It is hard to overstate the magnitude of Dr. Shabazz's contributions to increasing the presence of African Americans among those in the mathematical science. He was a giant as a teacher and a mentor. He brought his quiet support and dignified manner to his work, and his students flourished under his tutelage. We are proud that he honored us by accepting the 1992 award. Sincerely, Dr. Shirley M. Malcolm. Now, one of those who Dr. Shabazz worked close with is Dr. William Hawkins, who I'm going to ask to come up to the stage. Dr. Hawkins is the director for Strengthening Underrepresented Minority Mathematics Achievement, which is commonly referred to as SUMA. He works close with Dr. Pearson, who spoke earlier, Dr. Hawkins.
Thank you. Dr. Abdullah Shabazz was a relentless advocate for the mathematics education of African American students. I first met Dr. Shabazz when he gave a seminar talk in 1974, so that's 40 years ago, in my department, the mathematics department at the University of the District of Columbia, where I was, that was my 4th year there. I started there in 1970. about the African origins of humanity and the discoveries of Louis S.B. and Murray Leakey in Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. In addition, he talked about the work of Jean de Heinzen in the Ashango region of Lake Edward in Zaire. I later got a copy of the scientific work in an article by Dr. de Heinzen where he discussed what he called the Ashango bone. And this is actually a bone from a baboon that had mathematical markings on it. And it showed possible knowledge 20,000 years ago of doubling in prime numbers, or it may have been a lunar calendar. So as a young African-American mathematician, I was fascinated by both topics, but especially by the Ashango bone. The idea that both humanity and mathematics originated in Africa was considered revolutionary at the time. That same year, I returned to the University of Michigan to begin doctoral studies. I had earned my master's in mathematics there in 1970, and at that time I had decided not to return to graduate school. I was pretty well sick of school. And I started teaching mathematics at Federal City College, as it was then known, in the fall of 1970. And I continued at that time to teach, and then I took leave in 1974 to go back to school. So when I got back to the University of Michigan, the mathematics department was recruiting about 10 African-American graduate students a year. We decided to form an organization of the African-American graduate students, which I encouraged them to name the Ashango Society of Mathematics. So rather than being the Black Students Association, the Black Mathematics Students Association, I thought we should do something that recognized our African history. So we met periodically to discuss various concerns and hear talks by our fellow Black graduate students. This was a support mechanism to help us negotiate the complexities of graduate school. And although not everybody earned a doctorate, all of them did succeed in earning a master's degree. So I continued at the University of Michigan until 1979 when I went back to Federal City College, which eventually became the University of the District of Columbia. And it merged with DC Teachers College and Washington Technical Institute. And I received my PhD from Michigan in 1982. Dr. Shabazz often criticized the idea of remedial education and viewed it as holding students back from what they could really accomplish. He was always successful in increasing the numbers of mathematics majors at the various schools where he taught. His success as a mentor for African-American students in mathematics earned him the AAAS Science Mentor Award in 1992. You've seen on the screen the Quality Education for Minorities, Giants in Science Award, which he earned in 1995, and the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring in the year 2000. Also, the National Association of Mathematicians and the Association of African American Educators both awarded him Lifetime Achievement Awards. Dr. Shabazz was a soft-spoken, courteous, and gentle giant. It was an honor to have known him.
Now we're going to have remarks by one of those students that another student that Dr. Shabazz recruited, and a representative of QEM, Quality Education for Minorities. As Dr. Hawkins mentioned, one of the awards that Dr. Shabazz received was from QEM. So we'll have Dr. J. Arthur Jones. And what Dr. Jones just handed me was the background information on Dr. J. Arthur Jones. Come on up while I'm reading this, sir. He's a retired senior associate for QEM, He was the director of the Office on Equity and Diversity at the Mathematical Science Education Board at the National Research Council. He was the head program analysis office at the National Science Foundation. He was appointed to the steering committee, Making Mathematics Work for Minorities, chairman of the Department of Mathematics at Florida A&M. He received his bachelor's degree in mathematics from Lincoln University. I think I heard that school before. He got his master's and his doctoral degree from the University of Pennsylvania, or Pennsylvania State University, Penn State. I heard that one too. And this is Dr. J. Arthur Jones, one of the Dr. Shabazz.
Thank you very much. I met Dr. Shabazz in 1956 when I was a young student pursuing a degree in engineering at Tuskegee University. And Dr. Shabazz was a young mathematics teacher. It turned out that as a freshman, I was not fortunate enough to get into Dr. Shabazz's class. So I had a class another class. And I did well, and Dr. Shabazz found out about me, and he said, well, you can come to my senior level class in abstract algebra. I said, what's abstract algebra? So he said, you come to my class and you will find out what abstract algebra is. Dr. Shabazz, as I said, had just come down from Cornell University. And I met him at a time when I was a very hungry student, and not just for knowledge, but for food. I had met Dr. Shabazz when I was penniless. And what I mean penniless, I mean I didn't have 1 penny. And Dr. Shabazz bought me food. He paid for my lunch. He helped me. I got a job as an orderly at the Tuskegee Hospital. And I didn't know what an orderly was really when I got the job. But they said, who wanted to be an orderly? I thought an orderly was just somebody that keeps things in order. I found out an orderly is a janitor. And so Dr. Shabazz helped me. I worked on that job, and along with the support for Dr. Shabazz, I was able to complete my freshman year at Tuskegee. Dr. Shabazz said, well, you've been so poor here at Lincoln, let me get you a scholarship that pays more money. And Dr. Shabazz wrote to the officials at his alma mater, which was Lincoln University, and told them that he had a young man that should be sent that he would like to send to Lincoln on a full scholarship. And at that time, he had only graduated from Lincoln himself a few years. And Lincoln did make the award. So I left Tuskegee. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a Tuskegee Airman. I was in the Air Force, ROTC, and I was majoring in engineering. I tell people now, I was neither an engineer nor a Tuskegee Airman. So I never had any of those achievements. Dr. Shabazz was the most interesting person I've ever met. He was a hard worker. He insisted on excellence. What I wanted to show you today was I did go to Dr. Shabazz's senior level mathematics class, and he gave me a book. This is a book called A Survey of Modern Algebra, written by distinguished mathematicians from Harvard University. And I have it here, an autograph notice from Dr. Shabazz. It says, to John A. Jones, with every good wish for your continued progress. Certainly tomorrow for you will indeed be bright. Sincerely, at that time it was Lonnie Cross. We know it now as Dr. Shabazz. And so if anybody wants to look at this book, I worked every problem in the book from cover to cover. fortunate enough while I was working at the National Academy of Sciences to nominate Dr. Shabazz for both the Mentorship Award and the National Science gives a Science Award. Dr. Shabazz really got both awards, and as mentioned earlier, the award from AAAS, but he also had the other award. Dr. Shabazz, up until his last breath, was a mathematician. He was a teacher. So those who had difficulties in mathematics, Dr. Shabazz could teach them, and teach them in a very easy way. I'm fortunate to have met Dr. Shabazz. I believe it was divine intervention. And the reason I say that, when I was at Tuskegee that one year in 1956-57, Dr. Shabazz was at Tuskegee only during that 1 year, 1956-57. So we happened to meet at that time. By the way, Dr. Shabazz almost got in trouble for putting a little freshman in an advanced mathematics class. It was through the reading of this book and discussions with Dr. Shabazz that I decided that I wanted to be a mathematician, not an engineer and not flying pilots for the United States Air Force. So Dr. Shabazz didn't have to do much persuading with me. And I would also like to say that most of the African American mathematicians in this country who have doctorate degrees in mathematics studied under Dr. Shabazz. I had the great fortune as a graduate student who, when I was working on a dissertation in mathematics, I was invited by Dr. Shabazz to come to Atlanta and to work with him as a faculty member at Atlanta University. And so during summer 1963, I spent with Dr. Shabazz, and he certainly showed us that mathematics is life, and life is mathematics. And I had the chance to work with graduate students at that time. A number of students graduated with master's degrees, not only from Dr. Shabazz, but I had some students who received those degrees. So I'm proud, and I'm very upset. The thing that hurt me most in life is the passing of my mentor, my teacher, my director, Dr. Shabazz, and I'm glad to come and share some of those memories with you. Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to have an interlude with our own Laron Hassan, fresh from Blues Alley. He will just give us a little entertainment.
Good evening. And assalamu alaikum. You all are beautiful. I tell you what, you are just so beautiful. I am so honored to be able to celebrate the life of Dr. Shabazz. Like many of you, I was touched by his life and by his wisdom. And I was just, my family, you know, I came in the late 60s, and I had an opportunity to experience his wisdom. And when I heard it, I was hooked. Like many of you, I was hooked, you know. And, you know, so I wrote, this song came to me just a couple of days ago, so I just want to, it's very short, but I just want to share it with you. We have come today to show our respect for all the great work that you've done. Times have changed. You did what you knew how to do. You helped change our lives in many ways and gave us a sense of pride. We just want to say, may God bless you, Dr. Shabazz. We just want to say, may God forgive you, Dr. Shabazz. We have come here today to show our respect for all the good works that you've done. Things have changed. You did what you knew how to do. You helped change our lives in many ways and gave us a sense of pride. We just want to say, may God bless you, Dr. Shabazz. We just want to say, may God forgive you, Dr. Shabazz. We just want to say that we love you, Dr. Shabazz. Dr. Shabazz.
He inspired not only mathematicians, but musicians too. Another one of the organizations that recognized Dr. Shabazz, she is that. You know, you always talk about being able to see your roses, smell your roses before you pass. So it's real good to have been able to include some of the folks who recognize Dr. Shabazz in life and presenting him with awards. Dr. Brian Hamilton, the president of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, was not able to be with us, but he did send a resolution, and I'd like to read that for you. This is from the National Alliance of Black School Educators. It's titled Resolution of Condolence. Whereas it is with great sadness that the National Alliance of Black School Educators received news of the loss of Dr. Abdul-Alim A. Shabazz, who passed away on June 25, 1940. June 25, 2014. And whereas Dr. Abdul-Alim A. Shabazz was a faithful member of the Nation of Islam, where he served as Director of Education and as Director of Adult Education. And whereas Dr. Abdul-Alim A. Shabazz graduated from the historical Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School in the District of Columbia and went on to receive his PhD in mathematics. And whereas Dr. Shabazz was an accomplished educator, evidenced through his years at Clark Atlanta University, where he served as chair of the mathematics department, chair of the mathematics and science computer department at Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, and later served as endowed chair in mathematics at Grambling University. And whereas Dr. Abdul-Alim A. Shabazz was an exemplary leader in education community. By 1992, at least 100 African American holders of mathematics PhDs could trace their academic lineage to Dr. Shabazz. And whereas Dr. Abdul-Alim Shabazz was a diligent and dynamic leader in the National Alliance of Black School Educators, serving as a member of the Higher Education Commission and a mentor to hundreds of educators. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the National Alliance of Black School Educators extends to the bereaved family and friends of Dr. Abdul-Alim Shabazz our heartfelt sympathy and sincere condolence, and that a copy of this resolution is presented to his family on this day, Saturday, October 18, 2014. Respectfully submitted, Dr. Bernard Hamilton Jr., President, Ms. Marietta English, President-elect. It's from the National Alliance of Black School Educators. I'd like to call up another one of Dr. Shabazz's illustrious students, Dr. Genevieve Knight. She retired from a long and rich career in mathematics and mathematics education. She served on the faculties of numerous higher education institutions, among them Hampton Institute, University of Maryland College Park, Penn State University, the Harrisburg campus, and Coppin State University. Dr. Knight has been honored over the years by several professional organizations and our colleagues. One of the major awards that she received is the Elkins Endowed Professor. She wrote, Dr. Shabazz, also known as Dr. Lonnie Frost, heard about me from his former students. Come on over. Recruited me to Atlanta University before I completed my undergraduate program. Since the mid-50s until his death, he continued to be a part of my life, a trusted guide, and a mentor. I present to you Dr. Genevieve Knight.
My teacher, my mentor, my colleague, and my lifelong friend. I knew about Dr. Lonnie Cross long before I ever met the man. One of his students was my older sister. And those of you who knew Miss Quinn, she was a different kind of person, but she had deep thoughts about mathematics. She worked at Florida A&M. She was a writer for the 13 Colleges program, and she was very active in the Democratic Party and endless list. She was a high school teacher of mathematics, and she was a participant in the National Science Foundation Institute for High School Teachers. We were very close, very, very close. And she would write me these letters about this gentleman who talked about mathematics at the dawn. And he talked about all these wonderful things that black people had done. He talked about arithmetic in a different mode from algebra. And it was a big transition. I won't go into that, but if you ever want to hear that story, I'll be glad to come, because I'm retired and I'm in the retirement home now, so I can come and talk to your students and so forth, tell you about it. For 2 years, I knew about this man. I knew about this man who could make you prove things, and you could write proofs in paragraphs. The power of language, the power of conceptual understanding. And I think that some of us need to do a bit of writing about his views about this so-called development of mathematics. I could give you a test, testing the so-called the ideas and development, and you can pass it. Because people who could think and process information just don't think that way. And a lot of our students were put behind. We didn't have money and put behind because we had to spend 9 hours and so forth. But anyway, that's another story. For 2 years, I heard about this man. He knew of me because of my sister and because of 2 young men from Morehouse AU who came down to Fort Valley State College to teach. I never had a PhD teacher in mathematics. I had a PhD teaching in history and other areas. But I never saw a black man. Black, I have to say Lonnie Cross, because I was there from 61 to 62. I never saw a black man so articulate, who could talk to people, who could touch you and make you see things. He made William Thurston look kind of, weird. The man could see things. And he could do proofs. He said, you got to fix it. You got to understand it. This delta epsilon definition of the thing. You got to understand. You're fixing things. It is peculiar. And a lot of us, I worked at the Hampton Institute for 22 years. When I left, I was department chair for 22 years. Now let me tell you the connection, how I got to AU. My campus teacher was a Morehouse graduate and AU graduate, Lonnie Cross. And after the first set of homework and the first exam, he said, you know what, you think like Dr. Cross, we got to get you to AU. And I said, I don't know. So he said, I tell you what, let's make a deal. You keep making the grades, and I do all the paperwork. For 2 years, he wrote all the supporting documents so I could be in competition for one of the regional fellows, the Southern region. So I won that. But when I got to AU, the first thing that Dr. Krause said to me, we got to get you over to meet a man, Paul I. Clifford, because you don't have time to be worried about if you got enough to eat. You got a textbook. He's going to fix it. Georgia had a law. I couldn't go to the University of Georgia, so they had this law. And so I got this application done. I just assigned a name. I just kept making grades. When I graduated, I had no debt. No debt whatsoever. I had a certified check to get started. My parents didn't have to do anything for me because I had. I worked at a community college. Now the story might sound long, but I hope you give me a few more seconds to get the story straight. So in the spring, I made an application to the University of Georgia to be in the Institute for College Teachers for Mathematics. They said you're not eligible because you work at a community college. So I called the chair of the Institute, Dr. John Jewett, and said, I finished from Atlanta University, I have documentation, and you can contact Dr. Cross. And also, you can contact Paul I. Clifford, because I have a signed contract from Hampton Institute, and I will be working at a four-year institution. So, just a telephone call got me into that. So, during the time that I was there, Dr. Cross understood that we had talent. We didn't mind working. You see, a lot of people got degrees today, they didn't have to work for them. And when you put them to the bench,
that can't turn the screwdriver. And it's not restricted to people of color either. So Dr. Cross understood that some of us came from places like I came from. We had nobody to teach us how to mathematics. So he said, you got to take complex variables. I think it's analysis. We didn't know anything about that. So what he did, he recruited Alan Shields from the University of Michigan, who came down and spent 3 days with us, teaching us what it is when you need to do a proof, and to showing us the difference. You can have the same theorem in complex analysis, real analysis, but you got to do a proof different because of the definitions and the understanding. We didn't have internets and so forth then, but after Alan Shields came down, we would get these thick mailing envelopes, handwritten, on just ordinary paper, saying, no, you missed the point, and so forth. So between the two of them, Dr. Cross and Professor Alan Shields, we got the tidbits of complex analysis. The story goes on and on. When I got ready to go and get a PhD, I was reminded of the laws of Georgia. And guess what? Virginia had the same laws. So I thought about what Dr. Shabazz and Dr. Paul I. Clifford had done, so I got all these papers, got everything signed properly, and I got the money. And plus, the president of Hampton Institute was Brother Holland, Jerome Holland. He said, I have 5 young folks here, nobody has a PhD. If you go to school, you work on your PhD, I can guarantee you will have a job, but you got to stay in Hampton for at least 5 years. And we did. I think sometimes we spend too much time talking about the bridges people walk across. You need to talk to the people who made a difference. I am what I am today because of Dr. Shabazz. And he said, let's have ice cream. That was a cold word. You didn't get it in class. Your paper said you don't understand. So we'll go across the street. Somebody got to help me because I don't remember the name of that drugstore on the corner where they sold ice cream. So we said, we had class. Now, U.S. tribesmen said that black folks didn't get together and study. No, he never came to Bumstead Hall's basement. We studied. We studied together and we learned together. Now, Dr. Cross told us you can't be a professional in anything. You're a plumber, anything, unless you belong to the union of professional groups. He said, now remember now, I was there in 1961, and he had just experienced you can't come because you're a person of color. We had similarly, he put all of the activities in a hat, and we pulled. And I gave the Gibbs lecture. I never been to a meeting. I didn't know what it was. I had to do my research. And he said, you must belong. 2012, I received my 50th year pin from MAA, and I remained a member. There were many incidents in the professional organizations where you don't see two people of color doing things, not because we aren't qualified, we just don't get the vote. Shabazz was just like a person just could open up things. He could talk to you. And he thought about everybody. In his NSF Institute, some of us spoke French. We were very good in French. And he said, help them. Because if they can do the homework, they can get a degree. They're never going to have to use French. But they're high school teachers. So he recruited us, and we did those kinds of things. Shabazz was a man before his time. He talked about things, he could see things, he could touch things. And it was okay to be different. Just don't be indifferent. To be smart. When I went to College Park, I'm only 2 minutes. When I went to College Park, people would not talk to me. Now some of us, I can see that you understand what I'm talking about. People like Jones back there, and he knows what I'm talking about. We were nothing. I was nobody. Nobody talked to me. Nobody. So we had this exam for one of the toughest professors on campus. So I couldn't study with any of them because I was nobody. And so he laid us out. The professor did. He says, I heard, I'm shocked, because nobody knew anything. Only one person had a perfect paper. So he passed him out. I'm looking at mine. I had 50 on my paper. So, oh my goodness, I got 50. I said, wonder who got the perfect paper? He started going over the problem. I said, got that one right. I got that one right. I got that one right. Ain't but one more to go. I was the only person who made a 50. Nobody talked to me. But I took a lesson from, it was Shabazz by that time, because I didn't go right into a PhD program. So, if you're going to succeed, and I do it for I had lots of students who had PhDs, they didn't know they were smart. You got to make sure you get into these programs. You got to make sure that you stay in the programs and you want to graduate. But you can't have these cars and all these fine things. And you can't depend for people to do things for you, because we don't have brother-in-laws and uncles and so forth can do like Bush family, buy a building, do all these things. You got to be ready. And one of the persons that I mentored was Freeman Rabowski. And that protocol he has. He said, you got to depend upon your graduates. The people in your fraternity and your sorority to get the people in here to do it. Once they get there, you got to let the parents know it's expensive. And you don't want to stop until you get to the top. And you got to give and so forth. So it's nice to walk across the stage and have a PhD with no debt. You buy a house, you buy a car, and so forth. Because I used the model that I learned from Shabazz and learned from Atlanta University about having this account and making sure that you know the regulations. I am honored to be here to talk about as a student. Students don't see things like other people see things. I knew about the man long before I ever saw him. He knew of me. And he encouraged the right people to make, we want her here in Atlanta University. We want her here, and every time I've got an award, and I've got loads of them, he has come on his own dime to be in the audience to see me shake their hand and get my plaque. He has done that. If you go to these meetings, he sits and he listens to the famous speakers from all over the world. He listens to the students, and he takes Hawkins a little paper to check off all of the minorities. He goes and he supports people. That's the kind of man he was. And he got an award from him, AUMS. And then on the way back to the hotel, he said, let's go eat ice cream. I knew another lecture, but he taught past midnight to put us at the ice cream parlor. Shabazz was a wonderful person, I still say he was my teacher, my mentor, my colleague, and my lifelong friend. One more thing and I'm gone. When I received my doctorate, I got a call from Dr. Shabazz, who was in Washington, University of Maryland, College Park. He said, come have supper with us. I had no idea who the us were. And so I get this banquet with fruit, vegetables, and all his fellow persons in mosque, the best fish and so forth. And I had sit up there. I wish he'd told me I wanted soup, but I thought it was just supper. That's the kind of person he mentored us. And he says, you are not going to be anything unless you reach behind you and you pull other people in.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. That was the longest 2 minutes. Next time I have to give us some ice cream. All right, continue with the program. I'd like to call Dr. Brett Sims. I should say Dr. Abdul Rahman Munaz. He was born in Brooklyn. He earned his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering technology from the State University of New York in Farmington. Then in 1993, he received his Master's of Science in Pure Mathematics at Clark Atlanta University. I think we've heard about this Clark Atlanta place before. In 2002, he earned his PhD in Applied Mathematics from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He's currently an Associate Professor of Mathematics at the Borough of Manhattan Community College in New York. He also served as a department head of Mathematics and Computer Science at Grambling State University. Dr. Munaz.
Greetings, peace and blessings. I'm of the second wave of PhDs that Dr. Shabazz produced. When I say second wave, I mean from the, I guess, the early 1990s and on. I could list at least 7 of us that I know personally that also got their PhDs as a result of Dr. Shabazz or through Dr. Shabazz. And they all would like to send their greetings and peace and blessings from internationally and also nationally. I met Dr. Shabazz in 1991 when I applied to Clark Atlanta University to study mathematics education. I decided to get a master's degree in mathematics education. So I arrived there, it was 1991, August 12th, and then I also, as Dr. Jones and Dr. Knight, I needed a job, I needed to eat, and by the way, I was engaged, and so I needed to pay for an apartment because I couldn't have my fiance or my wife come down and stay at the dorm with me. So I asked one of my friends where I could find work. So as God would have it, I wound up meeting Dr. Shabazz indirectly, only because when my friend sent me to find out about work, I went to the wrong place. I went somewhere else, and I started speaking to this person. He said, well, I don't have any work for you. So I said, well, such and such sent me here. And so he said, well, tell me something about yourself. Mind you, I was in a school of education, so Dr. Shabazz was across the street. And so he said, okay, so you like teaching, you like doing mathematics? I said, yes. I came from math education, so. He said, I'm going to send you to somebody we call Daddy Shabazz. So I go over to Dr. Shabazz's office, and his door was open, as I'll tell you that was his policy. His office was open, and I walked in there, and I gave him this letter from, it was Dr. Mims from the education department, And I told him I needed some work. And so Dr. Shabazz, he read the letter and then he looked up at me and he said, we'll find you some money, brother. You know Dr. Shabazz talks. And so I'm saying, okay, I'm hoping that the money comes soon. But anyway, Dr. Shabazz, he gave me a teaching assistantship since I was a graduate student in math education at the time. And he allowed me to be his assistant as well. And then I invited another brother to be an assistant because there was another position, and I knew my other friend, he needed a job as well. So, our college students, we look out for each other. And by the way, the other student, he got his PhD before I did, by about a year. So he was the only other person that he was here to speak. So during that time, I learned a whole lot from Dr. Shabazz, both in mathematics and both as an administrator. And I didn't think I would ever be an administrator. I just wanted to teach mathematics. I noticed Dr. Shabazz's open door policy for all students. As long as he was in the office, his door was kept open. And students can come in, whether they were math majors or I guess English majors, whoever wanted to come and speak with Dr. Shabazz. And he would always stop what he's doing. Now, I was his assistant, so I'm sitting there and we have to work and do what we need to do. But he would stop what he was doing to speak to students and help them to solve their problems, whether it was a problem in mathematics or whether it was a problem with the school or a personal problem. And he wouldn't mind putting his work aside and finishing up his own work at night. And that meant I had to stay at night, by the way. Because he would get us to help him wrap up what he had to do. And then he would take us to dinner. He would always go, yes, he would always feed us and then speak more mathematics, and then we get home later. And then we have to wind up back in the classroom on the next day. But all of this was fun. It was great fun, and we were being mentored. That's the other brother. He also, Dr. Andreas Woods, just walked in. He also got his PhD through Dr. Shabazz in the second room. I'm shocked because I've been trying to call him for a long time. And anyway, so about a year later, Dr. Shabazz married my wife and I. We've been married now for, 92, for about 22 years? About 22 years now. And Dr. Shabazz, he served as a mentor and a father to us, actually. When I moved on from Clark, Atlanta, to go and, I made a few shifts. I went to Ohio State University to get my PhD, but I wasn't mature enough to stick it out. So if Dr. Knight knew me then, she would have got me. She would have jacked me up. Yeah, so Dr. Shabazz allowed me to come back and teach at Clark Atlanta University, and I taught at Morehouse College since I had a master's degree. And then when Dr. Shabazz he left Clark Atlanta to go to Lincoln, teach at Lincoln University, and I was still in Georgia. I decided, finally, I'll go and get my PhD. So I applied at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. And Dr. Shabazz said, here we go again. He says, brother, we're not going to allow you to come out of that school without your PhD. He said, we'll chase you back with a stick. I mean, real calmly. So I knew what that meant. But by then, that was a few years later, and I had my wife behind me, or pushing me, I should say, and Dr. Shabazz pushing me to go on and complete my PhD. And everything that Dr. Shabazz taught me, and that complex variables that you spoke about, I got a perfect paper in complex variables at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. And the teacher, what was funny, I looked at the problems and I laughed because these were similar problems that Dr. Shabazz gave us. Now, I had complex variables in 1991. And Stony Brook, this is 1998, right? And I mean, perfect paper. By the time I went on to do my qualified exams, and by the way, I was the only black man in the program. My other colleagues were from Korea or Japan. My other colleagues. I got a perfect paper on the qualified exam. So much so that one of the people, I say his name, Alan Tucker, he wrote Dr. Shabazz and told him that. And And Dr. Shabazz, of course, he was proud. He was proud. But Dr. Shabazz showed us how to read mathematics like we read the Sunday newspaper. He taught me how to get this done. And he also taught me through his administrative activities how to run a department. I didn't know I would be chairing the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science at Grambling State University. But I got that offer, and I was able to complete that. And I kept an open door policy. I didn't know how much work that is. When you leave your door open, and people just coming in, and you're taking care of your own business while you're helping them. But that develops you as a human being, and it develops you into not just a mathematics teacher or professor. And during this time, or all of this time going by, Dr. Shabazz has spent time with us, with our family. He stayed with us in New York. We went to movies together. We've gone to see plays. And I began to see Dr. Shabazz as a great humanitarian. I mean, he supported so many people, so many students, that I didn't even know. I started meeting these students later on. He's helped so many families. Even overseas in Kenya, he supported students' education over in Kenya. And on the larger human family, he's been trying to eradicate or get rid of the color line. He's been speaking, using Islam to eradicate the color line. I've seen him do that with my eyes. I've seen him go to battle with people. I've seen him give talks to Muslims or mixed groups of people to do just that. So his interest, as he told me when he first started off studying, he said he didn't want to be a mathematician in the beginning. He wanted to be a psychiatrist or psychologist. He said because when he was younger, he said he noticed people's minds was messed up, and he said I wanted to fix people's minds. You see. So he went about his work in mathematics and in Islam, trying to help people fix their minds. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring up someone from Clark Atlanta University, Charles Angelita, who's going to speak for about 3 minutes, and then we will move on and have a tribute through poetry given by Judge Hassan El-Amin.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brett. I'm here on behalf of Reverend Norris. I'm Dr. Shabazz, chairman of the Mathematics Department at Clark Atlanta University. My name is Charles Angelita. I'm a software engineer with Data Consulting, TCS, an Indian company. I was a student of Dr. Shabazz. He was my first mentor in mathematics. I was formerly an economics student at Clark and computer science. But I have a deficiency in mathematics, so I came down to the department to make up that deficiency in break calculus. And that's how I met Dr. Shabazz. Then Dr. Shabazz told me, he says, what do you want to do with your life? You're everywhere in economics and computers. You know? I said, I like to have enough mathematics to be able to do work as an economist. He looked at me, he told me, he said, there's what we call math bug. I'm going to give you a math bug. That math bug is going to stay with you throughout your life. So, he took me from pre-calculus to advanced complex analysis, functional analysis within 4 years. Brett was his instrument towards me. He marched up two of us together. We live across each other in the school. So we live and breathe made sure that mathematics becomes a way of life for me. That means he made sure I belonged to Pioneer Epsilon, Mathematical London Society. He made sure I went to Harvard University to get my PhD in mathematics by bringing 4 or 5 of us together to go to Harvard at the same time, so we can help each other. Because he says, each time we send our students who we are on, they always end up coming back. They never get to finish. And he was my first mentor, which I still learned the principle of master disciple relationship. That's to be a mentor goes beyond teaching knowledge, because as he said, I'm not here to teach just mathematics. I want to teach you how to read and write mathematics. Like that becomes your life, you stay with forever. And Reverend Norris sent me here today to talk about the tutorial program that Dr. Shabazz ran at Clark Atlanta, whereby the hallway becomes the classroom. The whole department, from top floor to the 7th floor, everywhere in the hallway where everybody is doing mathematics. So everybody likes coming down there because of the life, the force, life force, the passion people show about mathematics. And Dr. Shabazz made sure all of us become evangelists of mathematics. Thereby carrying at least every year throughout the time of Clark Atlanta, we graduate at least 10 to 15 math majors every year. But since he left, that program went back down. Never before, they graduated 2, 3, 4 math majors. But this program continues and he went on to that place. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll have Judge Hassan El-Amin to come forward and give us a tribute of poetry, through poetry.
Good afternoon, and assalamu alaikum. One of the themes that Dr. Shabazz often discussed was the socialization of the child. It's not just enough to have a brain or a soul in existence, but that soul has to be formed. And one of the pieces that I'd like to share with you has to do with the socialization of a child. It was written by the person whose name is on this school, Paul Lawrence Dunbar. And it's a magnificent poem. Think back to your early days as a kid. And you're in the house, it's maybe Saturday morning, and mom is on everybody. She's worried about the chores. She's got to get everybody up. She's got to cook breakfast. And maybe you're lying in bed trying to think the day through. So this poem, written by Paul Lawrence Dunbar, is called In the Morning. And you will hear some of the ethic and some of the powerful discipline that mom or maybe grandma imposes upon this young man. And I just imagine that Dr. Shabazz, in his own household, when he was coming up, had this kind of guiding, motivating force. It's in dialect, so I'll try to articulate the dialect and go slow enough so you can sort of catch the words. And the star of the show is called Elias. But in the dialect, it just comes out Elias. In the Morning by Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Lies, lies, bless the Lord. Don't you know the days that are brought? If you don't get up, you're scared. There'll be trouble in this camp. Think I'm going to let you sleep while I make you board and keep? That's a pretty howdy do. Don't you hear me, lies, you? Bet if I come across this floor, you won't find no time to snow. Daylight on the shining in while you sleep. Why? It's a sin. Ain't the candle light enough to burn out without a snuff? But you go the morning through, burning up the daylight too? Lies? Don't you hear me call? No, you're turning towards the wall. I can hear that mattress squeak. Don't you hear me when I speak? This here clock done struck on 6. Caroline, bring it in our sticks. Oh, you down, sir. Oh, you down. Look here, don't you dare to frown. Mop yourself and wash your face. Don't you spatter all the place. I got something else to do besides just cleaning up after you. Take that comb and fix your head. Look just like a feather bed. Look here, boy, I'll let me see. You shan't roll your eyes at me. Come here. Bring it and I'll stack. Boy, I'll put you to your drag. You done felt yourself too strong. And you surely got me wrong. Sit down at that table there, just you whimper if you dare. Every morning on this place seems like I must lose my grace. Fold your hands and bow your head, wait until the blessing say, Lord, have mercy on our souls. Don't you dare catch them rolls. Bless the food we're going to eat. You sit still. I see your feet. You just try to trick me. Give us peace and joy. Amen.
We have been truly blessed to hear from so many people today about the life of Dr. Shabazz. We've heard a lot about him from a mathematical standpoint, but right now I want to bring up Brother Yaya to come up and speak from the family standpoint. And also, I'm looking for Sister Labiba here. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we'll have Sister Labiba come after.
On behalf of the family, I'd like to thank everyone that showed up and spoke on my father's behalf. First of all, I'd like to give a little history on myself and Abdul Lane. Everybody called Dr. Shabazz. We as a family, we even called him when he was Lonnie Shabazz, we called him Doc. We didn't do it in front of his face, because it wouldn't happen. And as when he changed his name, we just called him Abdul Lane. All right. In 1971, I was 14 years old. I became a Muslim. And Marcus, his stepson, and I became real good friends. At that time, it wasn't popular for a young man to become a Muslim at that age. So I had conflicts with my mother. My biological father died when I was 5 years old. So Marcus, we became real close friends and brothers. He actually asked Sister Della, because we had to go through Sister Della first because she ran the family, that if I could move in because of the hell I was catching at home. She gave the nod, and then she said, you gotta go ask God. stop that he'd been to. Clocked Atlanta, went to Atlanta, stayed with him some time in Atlanta. Because I was the organizer. You know, he would need things, you know, he would move, and he would need someone to organize the house. And that's what I did. All right. He moved in, he went to Lincoln University, and I went up there and I started working at Lincoln University while he was teaching. He left Lincoln University and went to Grambling, and I was still at Lincoln University. So I left Lincoln University and I came back to D.C. Last year, me and him actually through all this time, we stayed connected because anytime he came where I was, he made sure I came to pick him up, and you know, we would talk. And we became, you know, father and son. He's the only father I ever known, you know, and he was a piece of work. You know, he was a piece of work. He was a good man. You know, he had never actually sat down and talked to me in depth about life, but he would write me a letter. I got many letters, you know, and what he would do, he wouldn't give it to me. He would put them in a place where I could see them and read them. Last year, I was actually with him when he passed. I knew that he was getting up in age, and he was living by himself. And he needed someone to actually kind of care for him. You know, he was independent, strong-headed, didn't want nobody to do anything for him. But he needed somebody to actually cook and clean for him and take care of the house while he was all doing his work. We got to the point that he worked so hard that I had to actually call him at about 8 o'clock and say it's time to come home. Because he would get so in depth into his work, and with the open door policy, he would sit there and talk to people and stay in the office. If he had a bed, he probably would live in the office. Okay? He was a good man, very good man. I definitely miss him, and I'm so grateful to the Shabazz family for accepting me as Sister Della accepted me as her son, and Marcus and Sula has accepted me as their brother. Okay? That's basically all I have to say. Thank you very much. I say
Sister Laviva come forward. While she's coming forward, can we have members of Dr. Shabazz's family to stand, please? As Sister Laviva makes her way to the stage, I also want to say I'm very excited about this part because last weekend and many other days when I get a chance to sit with my mother and talk, she often talks very lovingly of Sister Laviva and the MGT classes that she used to attend during the Nation of Islam. So I have a special love for Sister Laviva, and every time my mother tells me these stories, it just fills my heart even more of the connection that she's had and the contribution that she made to this community. So, Sister Laviva.
And good evening, everybody. I was fortunate enough to have the privilege to meet, greet, and work with Dr. Shabazz for quite a little while. When he first came, he was this tall, skinny man, soft-spoken, ate a lot, taking a long time to eat. Seemed like he would chew it 20 times before he swallowed. But he had a lot of patience. And he would sit here for two things. By the honor of Elijah Muhammad. That was to be our spiritual minister, and he was the director. Elijah Muhammad appointed him to be the director of the University of Islam. That's what we had. We had our school. And he was a very patient man. He knew what he was, but we didn't know what we had. So he would begin to change things because we know having a school was a problem to, it takes a lot to create a school. And we had lots of children, we had plenty of children. So he began to change everything, and he would have these long drop-back meetings. And he would explain things to us, how we could do it. And the first meeting he had with us about this school, he told us we had to do two things: have faith and give charity. So that means we had to sacrifice. And he would teach on that, and he would drill us until he thought everybody let it soak in. Because he was very interested in getting the children to learn, and because at that time, a lot of our children, they was having a lot of problems in the public school. And some of them said, when we open our school, they could really do their mathematics. So he was a mathematician, he had a mastermind. So he set the school up. He told us we got to have teachers, and they got to be paid. We got to have buses because he didn't want the children riding public transportation. We got all of that. Because you know why? He showed us where the money was coming from. We had programs where we still had to have faith and sacrifice. He said that was where success came from. And we accepted what he told us. Then we had people coming from, other members coming from other cities. After they found out what we had, they wanted their children to come to the University of Islam. And one day he told me, I'm working there. So he told me, Sister Captain, I said, yes, sir. He says, you're going to have to, no, he said, you're going to have to quit your job. So I thought to myself, now I know he's smart, but gee whiz, tell me to quit my job? And you know, us, we like our money, to give us a little independence. So I told him I would think about it, and I guess he laughed so hard. I guess when he told me to quit my job, the expression that came on my face was telling him something else. So I told him I would think about it. But then we talked a little while. He did his talking, I was listening because I'm thinking about quitting the job. So he says, well, I tell you what, you be paid. You be paid. You get a salary too. Because he let everybody, the whole body know, everybody worked, would get paid. And I don't remember nobody not getting paid. If they did, I didn't hear about it. He had the school buses going. We had the kitchen open, and he could eat there every day. And he liked that. And he also had a special cook. Sister Alice was his special cook. And he loved that because she would fix it and give him all he could eat, and he'd eat every dinner. So in this time, he even set up businesses too. He set up businesses during this time. He did a great job. He was a great man, and he had a mastermind. And he would think about it. I guess he would get it all planned out, because him opening up that school for us, that was the most wonderful thing he had ever created for us here in Washington, D.C. We loved him, the children loved him, and it made good for the parents that came from other cities. He would tell me sometime, he said, you know, I have a couple, Sister Captain. He says, they need a place to live. I said, well, I'll see what I can do. So at that time, we were very close then, and I would check with the sisters and see who wanted to house some of the children. They was coming from north and south, east and west, 2 at a time. And all of them that came to our school, they weren't Muslims. It didn't care. Since a child wanted to learn, he was able to help them to get it. And that made all of us happy. He was a great, brilliant man, and we didn't know, but we soon found out. up there sometimes, he would get to teaching us, and he would get up on his toes, and oh, he would be into it. And he'd get to that blackboard, and he'd be putting that math up there, telling us what we're going to do and all. And everybody that had children, you weren't the only one that would support the school. Everybody, he had mapped out. So everybody supported the school. So it wasn't your child, they were our children. And all of us supported it. He had on Savior's Day, sacrifice. He would come up again, he talked about sacrificing. So if you wanted to go to Savior's Day, you had to come up to what we had to do. We'd take care of business first. Then we would go to Savior's Day. And that one, to me, it wasn't, it sounds all right to me because if we, like he told us, if you want to have success, you have to sacrifice. So he would put it out there, and everything he asked us to do, we did it. We were successful, and I think he gave them all he had. And he was strong in the belief. And he taught the children to do that too. And he had this song he used to sing, "We're fighting for Islam and we will always win." And he made it brother to sing. We didn't know he could sing, but he loved to sing that song. So I'm grateful for this day, for us recognizing Dr. Shabazz, because he really deserved this. And I'm grateful that we are able to do this for him today. And it's such a beautiful day to do it. And I'm glad for all of you all that knew him before I did, that you got to know a great, brilliant man. I saw him.
I'm going to ask a former Dunbar graduate, Benjamin Abdul-Haq, to come forward. He's going to read something from the class of 1945. Also, are there any members who are here in Temple number 4 under Dr. Shabazz? If you could stand. As Benjamin's coming up, I just want to say there's a quote that one of my mentors often says, and it is, "If you see a turtle on a fence, you know he didn't get there by himself." And so we stand on the shoulders of giants, and thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. I'll be as quick as I can. One clarity. When Atiba mentioned 1945, I'm reading from Ms. Dolores Kendricks, who was a graduate in 1945. I graduated from Dunbar in 1972, not 45. So I want to make that clear. So, alhamdulillah, and Atiba also he forgot to wear his black and red from Dunbar. So all you Dunbar, you know black and red. I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, Sister Doris Kendrick could not make it. She's a poet and a laureate of Washington, D.C. She asked that we read this statement, so I'm asking you all to please bear with me as we try to wrap up. We have a reception, and we want to be on time and wrapping up. She stated that Dr. Shabazz, whom I've known as long as Cross, remains one of the great educators of this country, the United States of America. Her development and nurturing of the educational pursuits of more than half of all African Americans with PhDs in the United States in mathematics is of a monument itself to his talent, courage, and love for his people and his time. When a person has a dream and a destiny and pursues one without violating the other, that person has achieved the highest height of influence upon others, while at the same time serving with a determined strength. Mr. Shabazz, or Dr. Shabazz, recognition by President Clinton, and the award that he received for mathematics and science says it all. Dr. Shabazz, I will not mourn your passing because your footsteps still echo among us. Instead, I join the community here this day and send you a hallelujah. That's from Sister Dolores Kendrick. Now, the last thing that we need to read is the acknowledgments and a few few other comments from a closing. First, I want to say the first announcement should be to those of you who are here, over 125 of you that came out today. I'd like to give you all a round. Many people went to the football game today in Howard. It's a beautiful day. It's a nice warm day. And all of you still came out. You came out for the right reason, to honor Dr. Shabazz. In rolling the credits, so to speak, in ending this closing, we want to acknowledge first, she's also a Dunbar alumni, Sister Carrie Thornhill. We want to thank Chef Tate, I don't know if he's still here, Chef Tate, for the food that you're about to experience. Belinda Blunt, John Bilal, who's doing the video, the American Islamic Heritage Museum for some of the pictures that were contributed, Dunbar staff and audio and the video department, Brother Laurent Hassan, Naia Akbar, Sister Bahija Abdul Salam, Farah Shakur, Rafia Jones Shakur, and Sadar Neal. If I left out anybody's name, please excuse me, that was unintentional. And we just want to thank you all for your time and being patient. And we have, bring your name up? Yes, ma'am, we want to bring you a closing. And so I just want to again thank you all for this, coming out to this program. Some of you traveled far and wide. And just to let you all know, Sister Suad and her husband came all the way down from New Jersey. And I've been knowing her through the community since she was about 11 or 12 years old. So we thank Allah for this. Okay, give me a second. What are you saying? Just tell me, just wait, it's okay, it's his family, we can talk straight. What I need. Yeah, we have to close because we have a reception. So at this time, I just want to bring Imam Sharif. Assalamu alaikum.
I want to just take a minute to thank, again, the committee members. I want to thank Ibrahim Mukman, who served as chair for this event. Thank you very much. I want to remind everyone that we have a reception and refreshments in need. Though we have a time, then please, they have some nice food that has been prepared by Chef Tate.
Again, we want to thank everyone. Again, we said this and we officiated, blessed to officiate his funeral service. We asked, the people asked, what have they left behind? But the angels asked, what did he send forth? And we've heard some wonderful things today to show what he sent forth. You know, his name, the name Abdul Alim, servant of the all-knowing. You know, that's a wonderful name because it leaves the person, it gives them a lot of latitude because it tells them to seek knowledge and learn as much as you can because you'll never know more than the all-knowing. But responsibility, because you say you're a servant of the all-knowing, you have to serve the people. Because that's how we serve God, to serve the people. And we see that he was one who gave to everyone from his beginning to his end. Thank you all again. Please join us for the reception and the food. Also, we have some flyers. We're trying to build back up the legacy of the education. Sister Farah Shakur is in the back. Please take a flyer. Donate to that effort to get the school going back again. And also, I think there's one other thing out there. Marriage program. We have a marriage program coming up again. This institution is working upon marriage. So see Sister Rafi and Brother Kwame in the back. Please join us for the reception. Assalamu alaikum and thank you all again. If we're going to have members of the family come forward for a photo and any of the speakers, please, we can be together and just take this historical photo of everyone together with those who spoke and the family members. Please. Thank you.
Again, family members, SWAT, family members, please come forward so we can get a photo opportunity, as well as speakers. Dr. J. Arthur Jones, can I have my speakers come forward, please? Just, we can do it right here, because we can do it right here at the front of the stage. All right, now, come on, please.
tomorrow at the mosque that Dr. Shabazz led, we're going to have one of his close friends, Dr. Bruce British, who's with us also today, coming in from North Carolina. He's going to do a special presentation tomorrow at 1:30, and he has with him also his new book that he'll be speaking about and also signing tomorrow. Dr. Bruce British, again, very close friend of Dr. Shabazz, coming from North Carolina. He'll be with us at the mosque tomorrow at 1:30. Hope to see you there.
You have to get the video. Oh, don't do that. Don't touch that. No, come here. No, move. It's messing me up. No, go out. Yeah, but the little brother just moved everything. He should have said something. No, he was moving the camera.
Oh, he was. Oh, is folks still taping?
I think so. Even if he is or isn't, he shouldn't be listening to this quick. He don't do that.
Yeah, it's on record.
Yeah.
It's definitely on record. He's right there. He's got the stage still set.
Well, do me a favor, since you're standing, don't let that little brother come back in there.
Yeah,
They should know. They should all know.
Yeah, well, I didn't even notice. I thought he could have been his son.
No, you didn't go up there.
No, I didn't do it. No. Hit one time, his doctor. Kareem Abdul-Rashid. The only reason I remember it because the court said oh, okay. He from? He never the mother, the brother, we had the little daughter, had the family problem. He said send him back. Yeah, he said I'm going to do it. He said send him back to D.C. Yeah, that was his next. So it got straightened out, but the little daughter. That's where she was. Really? Yeah. Everything worked out right for me. I just got rid of more headaches. So I just wanted to keep her going. How old is she? 17. So she's got one more year to go, right? Yeah. And we got 18, right? 17, yeah. 18, she's on her own. Right. In Maryland, right?
Well, 18, yeah, but I'm just saying, the teenagers, I'm talking about 13. Once they decide they make up their mind.
Oh yeah, but when she turns 17, I mean 18, is she on her own?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, she can apply for emancipation, but 18.
Good, thank you.
Good.